Hey Smite fans, welcome back to another SPL prediction video. This time we're going to be looking at Week 9, and we're honestly going to be hoping that it goes a little bit better than Week 8, as you can see. A lot of those went poorly for me, and honestly, I'm partially happy with that. I'm really happy to see some of the way that the games went. They were really fun to watch, and as it comes this week, we're going to have some really interesting matches as well, but we're going to be starting it off with a relatively easy one. Soar versus Envy. There is no doubt in my mind, Soar is going to be able to take this 2-0. Envy has just not been the team that they were, and honestly, with Soar, the way they've been playing, they're sitting up at the top, Envy sitting way down at the bottom. Even if Envy can give Soar a little bit of trouble, it's only maybe going to be in the first 5 minutes. I think Soar is going to control the games pretty much the entire split. For Luminosity versus the Randozos, I think the Randozos are going to give Luminosity some trouble, actually, and while they have been practicing and honestly getting a little bit better than they were showing, Luminosity has just kind of been, they've been teetering. They're on this kind of landing point that I feel they could lose a game here, but I don't think it's as likely as it was a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, I would have called this honestly as a split, but Randozos kind of showing that they aren't necessarily as strong, especially without Polar Bear Mike. And Luminosity, I mean, Luminosity is just showing themselves to be, again, the strong team that they are, and as they play, I'm going to continue to say that this is going to be a 2-0. This is probably the match of the week. There are some other games that are going to be really good, but this is the one to watch. You don't want to miss this one. Eager and Enemy, pretty much the top 2 teams right now in NA. I want to say, like, the top 4 are all really, really close to each other, and I'm not entirely sure where to gauge this, and honestly, this game is going to show us which one of these is really the better team. I think that what we're going to see here is that Eager is going to take the first game, and it's not going to be an easy take for them, but they're going to take it. It's going to be probably a really hard-earned fight, and they're going to take it. And then Enemy, being the way they are going to just kind of refresh, come into the next game a little bit stronger. They're going to be a little bit smarter with their picks and bans. They're going to be a little bit smarter with their shot calls, and honestly, Enemy is very deadly in the second match because they know what to expect. They know what to look for, and that's why I think this one's going to be a split. I think Eager is going to be able to take the first game, but I think that Enemy is going to very much come back and be able to take the second. This one's going to be a very interesting match to watch as well. Starting up on Friday, we're going to have EU Panthera versus Hungry for More. Hungry for More showing themselves to definitely be in the top 3 these last couple weeks. They have been doing incredibly well in their matchups, and while I think that a lot of this is going to be, I want to say, close, they're going to have some close calls in this game. Panthera, once again, going to be able to take this. I don't think Panthera is going to drop any more games the rest of the split. They might be able to lose one more, but I don't see it happening here, and I don't see it happening next week either. Panthera going to take that in a 2-0. This one's going to be very interesting as well. Paradigm and Dignitas. If Dignitas plays the way they did 2 weeks ago, then they might have the chance to be able to take a game off of Paradigm. But as it stands, if Paradigm plays the way they did last week, I don't think Dignitas has much of a chance at all. And while that does seem kind of, I don't want to say fanboy, but it seems kind of like Dignitas last week just didn't really exist the way that they did the couple weeks before. They were starting to show themselves to be very, very strong, and then they just kind of started losing a couple matches. I think they may have tilted a little bit depending on their losses. They did split with Torpedo, and then they got 2-0'd by Hungry for More, and honestly, this is either going to drive them to play a lot harder this week, or they're going to be a little bit upset with how they performed last week and not be able to come up to terms. Paradigm, however, if they can just keep up what they did last week, being able to get that nice split against Panthera, I don't have any doubt in my mind that if they can play that way, they're going to have an easy 2-0 against Dignitas. Now, this one's hard to call for a completely different reason than some of the other matches. Now, while other matches like Enemy versus Eager are going to be very, very close, this one is going to be close, but it's more towards the bottom of the rung. Cringe Crew having not played as well as they could the last couple weeks. They've been honestly kind of showing themselves a little bit weaker than they were a few weeks ago. And Fnatic last week showing a little bit of signs of life, but not necessarily being a strong roster still. And while I do think Fnatic is going to give Cringe Crew a little bit of trouble, I still think that because of just the way Fnatic's been playing and the way Cringe Crew has been playing, I still think Cringe Crew is going to be able to take it 2-0. This could very well be a split depending on how well Cringe Crew comes back to this. If they've been practicing, I have no doubt that they'll be able to take it, but if Fnatic is, landing through here, and honestly, if Fnatic comes through having practiced and Cringe Crew hasn't done anything, then they might split it, but as it stands, I think Cringe Crew's going to 2-0. Starting up Saturday, Torpedo versus Leftovers. This one kind of sits in the same vein as the last game. Both of these teams are relatively even matched. Both of these teams don't have any real advantage over the other. Neither team has a member that is significantly stronger. There's no god tier players on either ones of these. There's no real strong player on either one of these. They're all relatively evenly matched, and when it comes to the team play, they're still relatively evenly matched, and I believe that Leftovers and Torpedo are going to split. If Torpedo can play like they did last week and Leftovers play like they did last week, then yeah, it's going to be a split. I think both of them are just relatively evenly matched here. For Paradigm versus Fnatic, whereas Cringe Crew might have a little bit of trouble, I don't think Paradigm will at all. As long as they play the way they did last week, this is going to be a very easy 2-0 for Paradigm. Allegiance versus Denial is going to be a very, very interesting set as well. Allegiance, having played the way they did last week, was very, very strong, and honestly, I think their roster with Weekend on it is a lot stronger. They have a good shot caller here. He's a relatively decent jungler, and with the rest of the members starting to finally fit their roles, I think having Weekend to guide them is definitely helping them out. And Denial, honestly, being able to take a 1-1 against Soar is very, very strong, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see them 2-0, but I think Allegiance has a chance here, and I think Allegiance is going to be able to pull one out, mainly because of those roster changes. Now, if anything about that changes after I've finished recording this, which I'm recording this Tuesday morning, then this is going to very much be an easy 2-0 for Denial, but as it stands with the roster that they had last week, Allegiance I think is strong enough to take a game, and this is going to be a split. Pretty much the opposite of what was going to be the last game. So Allegiance versus Denial going to be very, very close. Eager versus Randozo is not going to be close at all. Eager going to be able to eat through them. Honestly, with ease, this is going to be a 2-0 for Eager. Eager is just going to run the show the entire time. This one's hard to call. Leftovers, honestly, this depends on how they do earlier this week. If Cringe Crew can 2-0 Fnatic, and they do it with such gusto that they are very, very much showing themselves to be very far ahead. And honestly, if Leftovers can take either the split or honestly 2-0 Torpedo, this one might be able to go either way. Cringe Crew, depending on how they play, can take it as a 2-0. Honestly, Leftovers, depending on how they play, could take it as a 2-0. Both of these seem sitting, I want to say, in the middle of the pack right now, unless Cringe Crew has been practicing very, very hard. I see this one going as a split, both of them not really being stronger than the other. And I know I said that there was the one match on Thursday that was probably going to be the match of the week, but this one's very much going to be another game to not miss. Enemy and Denial. So Denial took 1-1 with Soar. And like I said, Enemy is the probably deadliest in the second game. And so the question becomes, who's going to take game 1? I have no doubt in my mind Enemy will take game 2. They have pretty much shown themselves to always want to take that game and always be able to take that game. And so the question comes down, who's going to win game 1? And I'll be honest, it's really hard to call. Enemy is definitely going to be strong. They're definitely going to be practicing, especially because they aren't easily at the top anymore. Whereas the first half of this split, they were definitely sitting at the top, no problem. Now there's some competition out there, so I know they're going to be practicing a lot harder. But the same goes for Denial. They've shown themselves to be a lot stronger. Last week we saw them 1-1 with Soar, which was absolutely impressive. Like, nobody really saw that one coming, and honestly, knowing that happened, I think that Denial is going to be able to take game 1 and Enemy going to come in and take game 2. I think this one's also going to be a split. Now, falling down for just a quick recap through the week, we have Soar taking it over Envy, a relatively easy 2-0. LG taking it over Randozo's, once again, a relatively easy 2-0. The match of the week going to be Enemy versus Eager. These are going to be insane to watch, and honestly, either team taking a 2-0 and not be surprising here, but I think they're going to split mainly because of that, Enemy being much stronger in the second game. Panthera versus Hungry for More. While I think Hungry for More is going to give them a little bit of trouble, Panthera are going to be able to take that one as well, 2-0. Paradigm versus Dignitas. Depending on how Dignitas plays, there might be some bumps in the road for Paradigm, but as long as Paradigm plays the way they did last week, it will be a relatively easy set for them in a 2-0. For Fnatic versus Cringe Crew. Now, Fnatic, if they can show some signs of life, might be able to take a game, but I think Cringe Crew, as long as they've been practicing a little bit, is going to be able to take that one 2-0. It could very much be a split, so you need to be able to watch that one. For Torpedo versus Leftovers. Leftovers and Torpedo, honestly, both being kind of in the same cut of team. They both have the same amount of team play right now, and honestly, I think this one's going to fall as a split. Paradigm versus Fnatic, whereas Cringe Crew might have some trouble, Paradigm going to be able to take that one in a relatively easy 2-0, especially if they played the way they did last week. Allegiance versus Denial, another game you do not want to miss. This one's going to be very close. I think it's going to be a split, but it all depends on how Allegiance plays. If they can play anywhere near the way they were playing last week, then we are seeing a different league of team out of them, and I think this one will be close, and it will be a split. For Eager versus Randozo's, whereas the last one was going to be close, this one's going to be very much in the favor of Eager, going to be a relatively easy 2-0 against the Randozos. For Cringe Crew versus Leftovers, this one is very much dependent on how both of these teams play earlier in the week. However, right now, as I've seen them from the last couple weeks, I'm going to have to give this one as a split. Both of them sitting, again, once relatively close to each other. And for Enemy versus Denial, this one is another game. Just do not miss it. Every single day has one you want to watch, and this is going to be the one for Monday. Very close. I do think Enemy's going to take game 2, no problem, but Denial, I think, is going to have what it takes to take the first game, and it's going to fall as a split, and I'm excited. I'm so excited for all of these games. Every single day has a match that I'm really interested in watching. Every single day has matches that I think are going to be very, very close. Friday maybe being the only one that might be an exception, and honestly, as it comes down to it, this is another really great week to be a Smite fan because all these games, a lot of top tier teams going up against each other. They're going to be very fun. It's kind of like watching a Clash of the Titans here. And as it comes down to it, I hope you're as excited as I am, and I, hope that some of these picks are helpful. Hopefully you see some of the reasoning I have, and if you have any different opinions, go ahead and tell me. But as it is, I'll see you guys next week for week 10, and the final week of the SPL is next week, and I don't know what I'm going to do when it's gone. I spend so much time watching this that it's insane. So as it stands, thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you next week.